Hey Shakers, we're here today with Jim Franklin. Jim, thanks for joining the Handshaking video series. First, we're going to ask Jim about how he got into entrepreneurship, and then we're going to ask him how community, experts, and mentors played into his success. So, Jim, maybe you could take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about your story.
You got it. Well, thanks for inviting me here. I always like to share the story. It started with my growing up on the East Coast and wanting to come to Boulder in particular, and focus on sort of sports and triathlons and stuff, but needed to work, but didn't have a job. And so for 2 years, I was really just kind of scraping by doing this and that. But what I did was I showed up to everything. So all the tech events that were going on even back then, Rocky's Venture Club and things like that. And so when they found that I had time, they're like, hey, why don't you contribute your time? Because everybody can contribute something. And by showing up, and I was on the membership committee or sponsorship committee, or put together conferences and became treasurer. And so for 2 years, just really volunteering, like, I don't know, it was a lot, north of 20 hours a week. Right? It's just kind of what I was doing a lot. You get to know people. And people get to know you. That you show up on time, you say please and thank you, you follow through on your commitments. And one of the guys I met through Rockies actually that offered me my first job when I was 28 to be CFO at Decisioneering, which was a 4-person company.
Oh, sweet.
That had run out of money. And I thought that would be exciting to get involved in that company and help grow it.
So as soon as you moved here, you started immersing yourself in an entrepreneurial community. Is that right?
That's right. Just coming to Boulder, Denver. That's where this is where the jobs and the growth were. I picked this area because it was on such a good upswing. And I thought you could live in other places of the country that maybe aren't doing as well. And I'm like, it's just great. For 20 years, you're part of a place that's been growing. So you kind of go where the growth is. And with technology and entrepreneurship, it's not so much that I chose to do it, is that I just couldn't really do anything else. Trained as a lawyer, that just bored me to death. Trained as an accountant, there's no way I could do that. Being a tax lawyer in DC was my other path. I think I would have just gone insane. I really like the chaos and uncertainty involved in startups. I think it's just miraculous to see a business start. Getting that co-founder, first customer check, first investor check, key partner. That is just an awesome thrill.
So let's hear a little bit more about the story. So how long were you CFO for Decisioneering?
So I was CFO there for about 4 years, and then became VP of Sales, and then more or less got fired after that. I've got a lot of bumps to the road. Actually offered me the CEO job. It was 99, and I'd want to do a startup, and I'd rather be a founder than the CEO of a company I've been around for 5 years. And so I ended up becoming a founder of Web Families, and again, I met my co-founders through networking. It was just people I met in the community, knew what I was about, and really connecting people that build stuff, people who sell stuff, and people who finance things. Right? That I think is the key formula for a good founding team. So I kind of came in as the financial partner to our startup, and then had 2 great co-founders who were able to go raise money and get a startup. And then that didn't go well. $5 million in a little over a year was all gone. And so, again, by being known in the community, I ended up being a CFO again at Vericept, a venture-backed company here in Denver. And then we raised a lot of money and grew that quite a ways, including hiring a CEO who then fired me. And so I got fired once, crashed the company, got fired again. Right? But, all through that thread, I've been in the community doing things and getting to know people. Especially when I first became a CFO, I didn't know anything about being a CFO, really, just from school. And so some good advice I got was to then go find CFOs at other companies who are maybe 10 or 15 years older than you, and basically just invite them to lunch. And so I was sort of well known for having lunches at the Cheesecake Factory, and I've been doing that since the mid-'90s. And just invite 3 people, and I'll buy lunch, and then I get to ask the first question, like, how do you put a board packet together? Or what's a good lease look like for a building? Right? I just know what terms should be in there. And I've always found in Colorado that people are willing to help. If you say, hey, I want to know about this, and A, they'll show up to lunch, and B, they want to help. And when I became a VP of Sales in Decisioneering, same thing. I went and got VPs of Sales with 10 more years experience and said, hey, how do you address channel conflict? Or what's a good compensation scheme? And it's just really been a boost. And then when I became a CEO after Vericept, back at Decisioneering, it's funny how that works out. Same people who fired me hired me back 4 years later. a first-time CEO, right? So it's really important, I think, for CEOs to have groups of other CEOs that they can meet with, whether it's through a formal program. Again, it's just invite a few people to lunch every now and then, and just complain about your board or your shit or whatever, right? It's just you always have issues that you really can't talk to about other people in the company. But having that peer, sort of peer plus networking, right? So I wouldn't. I don't like the word mentor exactly, right? That seems a little bit more formal or structured. It's really just helpful people that are somewhat more experienced than you are in some particular area, and then keeping it really informal. I work with lots of startups that want to create advisory boards and give them equity, and it's like, I think your cycle time as a startup, your needs change so fast that you should just buy people lunch or give them some Broncos tickets or something, right?
That's great.
Advisory board, that seems too formal. I've never really seen that work effectively because your needs change rather rapidly.
That's great advice, Jim. Before we get a little bit more into community experts and mentors, I'd like to just highlight two of the knowledge bombs that Jim brought up here. Number one, in Colorado, entrepreneurs will help entrepreneurs. Ask for help, Shakers, and you'll find success with your startup. The second knowledge bomb, Shakers, was keep it informal. Buy mentors, buy your advisors lunch, and keep it informal until you reach a state of a little bit more consistency. Don't worry about the contracts and being too formal. Just ask for some simple help.
I'll give you a tip on how to avoid buying lunch for your mentors or your advisors is that when the bill comes, you should move your elbow like you're reaching for your wallet, and hopefully your advisor is like, no, I got it. So save the $40 or whatever. But at least you should motion like you're going to buy it. Like, oh, no, I'll get it. And hopefully the person with the bigger balance sheet will pick up the lunch. I found that it's worked almost every time. If you're the one if you're looking for a job or a new role, right, and you're networking with people, offer to pay, but hopefully they should pick up the tab.
Yeah. So let's see, where should we go next, Jim?
How about on the community? I think you asked about as a tip, don't be shy about asking for help. I think the key three things are to give, and give. Right. So first, you give, and give. So when I got here, it wasn't about like, I'm going to show up at this meeting and I'm going to go get a job, or I'm going to find some company to join, right, as a co-founder, right? It's like everyone has something to give. So whether you're 26 like I was with no experience, I had my time, right? And so I could give my time. And every time I meet someone, they always have something to give. And I think that if you start with that perspective of, hey, I'm going to give, then things will come back to you, in time. Where I've been a little frustrated sometimes is I might introduce someone to a company where they can help the company, but the company is not in a position to say hire them or give them a contract for consulting or something. And that person will come back to you and say, well, Jim, that wasn't a very qualified introduction. And I'm like, well, that wasn't the point, right? The point is some introductions, hey, maybe it does turn into money for you. And other introductions, hey, this is your opportunity to help others, right? And you got to be able to, not just do both sides, but like the vast majority of your effort should be in helping others. And then, when you need help on whatever it is, that comes around.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge knowledge bomb, Shakers, is pay it forward. You can't control how much people give to you, but you can control how much you give to others. And in general, especially here in Colorado, people want to give back. And you can give, like Jim says, and that's one of the best ways to find success as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think in Colorado, it's almost 100% response rate. When you call someone up and say, hey, would you sit on our panel, or would you be a judge, or hey, could we get together? It's always like, yes, when is it? If I can't make it, then we'll try and find another time, or find someone else that can cover that. So whether it was calling VCs to be on a VC panel for some presentation, they always say yes, right? They won't give any sponsor money. That's a different question, right? That's why you call lawyers, CPAs. And, generally they'll come up with some kind of sponsor dollars to help make sure your organization can pay its bills and whatnot, and put on good content. So I've been on the board and involved with the Boulder Denver Software Club for a long time with Richard Bass. He does great content, and anytime you need someone to host a meeting like Cooley Gladwood hosts a CEO forum for us, just it was gracious and happy to do so. Or work at Founder Institute. It's easy to find locations, whether it's Jim Dieters at Galvanize, or you can find folks at SendGrid or whatnot. It's like, there's a lot of places, Vic and the group down there, location to go. They're always willing to help.
Yeah, that's great. So, community, Shakers, immerse yourself, give. And you know, I had one question for you, Jim, before we move on to how experts played a role in your success, and that's when you're talking about give, and always take the meeting and go do a lot of things. A lot of entrepreneurs have what I like to call shiny object syndrome. How do you say yes, 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 and give without spreading yourself too thin?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and there's no easy answer. So, yeah, I think it depends a lot on your stage of life. So, if you're in your 20s or early 30s, not married, don't have kids, your bandwidth is a certain amount, right? And so, when I was in that phase of life, this is just kind of was your social life, right? So, we did nights and weekends, was out at tech events and that kind of thing. You're married, you have kids, that gets a little trickier to sort of be out there all the time. If you're doing your first company and you're in your 20s, it's like you're kind of all in on it. In your 30s, it does get trickier to balance that. So there's some ways I've seen people like David Cohen, founder of Techstars. He pretty much doesn't take meetings, but he does. He always responds with, "Can I be helpful via email?" And so I found that's a good technique. They say, "Hey, let's set a meeting for coffee." It's like, "Hey, can I be helpful via email?" I want to help you, so let's just be really concise and ask me this very pointed question. I need an intro to so and so. I would like to evaluate this versus that. Brad Feld sort of consolidates things to his community days, right? And so once a month, for 15 minutes, he takes sort of what he calls random meetings. So we got David Cohen. It's how Techstars started, right? So there's huge optionality in meeting sort of people that you might not have an obvious connection to right away. I've done it just sort of time box at different times of day, like afternoons or that kind of thing. I think other strategies would be to give people work before you accept the meeting to kind of qualify. So if someone says, "Hey, would you review my business plan and meet me at lunch at Cheesecake Factory?" I'd be like, "Great, here's my sample exec sum that I've used to raise money a couple times." And I'll send it to you. So put your idea in that format and then send it back to me, and that'll help me help you better.
Exactly.
And if they never write back to me, then no meeting. Right? But if they write back and they put it in that form, hey, I can really digest it well. But also, I just know they paid a little price to kind of say, oh, all right, I'm gonna invest in this. It just helps qualify the meeting. A little bit.
That's
So doing some kind of qualification scheme, I think, is one way to control it. Time boxing is another, right? So, hey, Thursday afternoons from 2 to 5, I'm just going to book that. And then if it takes 4 months to get an appointment, then that's why, right? Because there's a finite set of time that you can devote to it. So if you are actually in launch mode of a business, then I would say don't do any of this stuff, right? Because when you're in that launch phase, you need 100% commitment, including no family, no exercise, no personal interest. It's all in, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like when I joined SendGrid, employee 25, they're just transitioning from that launch phase to like, hey, we have a real business here. And just helping the founders and people realize like you've got to be able to do this at a sustainable pace. And that's when I think you can start to get, especially with SendGrid that raises lots of money, has lots of success, then it's super important that you build facilities and you have the budgets to sponsor all the various 30 events a month. So there's a lot of sponsorships. To sponsor things in the community and to
get exposure.
To be that payback. And it was good for our business, but we would have done it anyway, even if we would have had enterprise clients.
Yeah. Wow.
Because that's where the community we came from. I think that the reason people like to help so much is that being a person who started something, I realize how hard it is. And I'm not in a position right now to go do that, right? So it's fun to be near people who are starting things.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 person companies. And that's very exciting to be close to it. I could be a recreational drug user, right? It's like I'm not in there, every day, living or dying on this particular business. But as a board member or advisor or just a friend, a decisioner, we call them FODs. We want to keep a collection of FODs, Friends of Decisioner. And just having FODs, right? It's just this newsletter, the people on your update list, etc.
Yeah.
People who clap for your victories, right?
Yeah.
Know your struggles. It's fun to have that.
Yeah.
That community.
That's good stuff. Again, with community. So one more highlight, and then maybe we'll get to experts. Shakers, if you heard Jim say, your bandwidth is wider back when you're in your 20s and even 30s. And with news sources like Business Insider predicting that in 2020, 40% of the American workforce is predicted to be temporary workers, contractors, and freelancers. start your business now, and especially if you're under 30. Now is the time. So let's keep going.
It's always a great time to start a business.
That's true
But
too.
now
It's
is a
always
good
a time.
because pretty good access to capital. People are, you have customers who are buying things, so there's that. But it's a tough time now if you're trying to like get space or hire people, right? And so we've had a good run since '08. At some point that run will end. Who knows when, right? If I knew that, I'd be richer, right? But at some point it will, right? And then we'll be in this sort of down market, right? And then there'll be a lot fewer people interested in entrepreneurship, but there's the lifers, right? That this is all we want to do, so we'll still be around.
Yeah.
And then I think that's a great time to start a business because you can get space, you can get great people, they're willing to work for reasonable prices, i.e. nothing or equity or whatever. And I think that's where you see companies like SendGrid from '09. There's a really good class of companies that came out of that '09, 2010, just sort of the year or two after the last downturn, and then you got the next upswing. So I think it's always a good time to start a company. But, just trying to understand what the strengths and weaknesses are in a particular environment you're working in.
It's a good one. Always a good time to start a company at Shakers. So let's move on to experts. So Jim, was there a time in your entrepreneurial endeavors where you needed feedback from an expert in your startup's industry? If there was, how did you connect with them, and what did that process look like? Were you able to get their attention?
Well, it might surprise you that when you think of an expert, you probably think of some kind of like PhD or a person with lots of experience on something. But in the case when I was a founder, and we were working on something in the sort of healthcare IT world, we weren't sure just what. We thought that would be a good place to start. There's a lot of problems. We're trying to think about what's a problem we could solve with about $5 million, like 50 people in 3 years. And just trying to find some of that right scale. And so we went through literally about 450 different business ideas, just kind of sample exact stuff
Yes,
we
that's
talked about
good.
earlier. And we didn't focus on the product so much. It wasn't like, will this product work? We like to focus on go-to-market. I like to ask people, how do you get big fast, right? What does that look like? Or how's your marketing work? Who's going to buy? What's their price sensitivity? And so we had this idea to do a billing system for doctors to increase their revenue and automate some billing. And the people who run that are doctor admins, right? So the admins that run for doctors. So those are the experts we need to talk to and say, hey, what is a day in their life like for you? How can we help you? We think, on paper this would make sense. And so literally our point of access was one of my co-founders was a doctor and an engineer. And so he knew doctors who had admins, so he could do the intro. And the cost was just literally a bag of donuts. A box of Lamar's donuts. And we brought in donuts, and it took an hour and a half of this person's time, our little group, and we said, hey, we want to ask you a few questions, right, about this and this. And it all went pretty well. It was, we have this problem, and technology would be a great solution. But when it came to pricing, right, I said, so what do you think doctors would pay for this? And they laughed at us. And we said, well, why are you laughing?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, doctors don't pay for anything. And the doctors argue about the Reader's Digest subscription for $29 a year, right? They're not going to pay you $100 a widget or whatever for your software solution. And we're just like, thank you very much, right? That was a great use of our time and the donuts to realize that if we would have gone and built this solution and try and take it to that market and that channel, it would have just been very challenging. And I think also something Coloradoans are good at is killing things. Right, is test it, and this is way before lean startup concepts, right? It's the same idea, right? You just want to test stuff fast and cheap with those experts.
Yeah.
Go test, what do I have to believe to be true for this business to work, right? And then how can you test those things that have to be true, for a box of donuts, right? And then be like, okay, either you find that you get momentum, and it's like, oh, this works, or, this doesn't work. And we eventually created an online baby photo service for hospitals. And the expert we talked to was the CIO of HCA, Hospital Corporation of America.
Okay.
Who again was friends with my co-founder. So your co-founders can be access to capital, which one was, or access to distribution, which the other one was. And if you have capital and distribution, that's a great foundation. So by having meetings with this particular person in Nashville, the in there really was to my co-founder, but the relationship was about Peyton Manning. So he was a huge Peyton Manning fan from Tennessee, and we would spend 58 minutes a week talking about Peyton Manning, which I had to learn about because I didn't know anything about Peyton Manning. And then we spent 2 minutes a week talking about our little business. And he'd say, he eventually said, if you guys build this, then we'll put it in the whole HCA system. So we basically sold, that represents 1 million moms a year are in the HCA system. And we could use that promise to go raise $5 million to start the business.
Wow.
So you got to be able to reach out to people and use your network, which again I found through just meeting people in the ecosystem in Colorado. Is how I found my co-founder, which is how I got to that key CIO.
Yeah. Well, isn't that interesting, Shakers, on how experts kind of play in to our previous video with Gary Gessler of Cloud Elements. Pick strategic co-founders and make sure you vet them. It's not something that happens quickly overnight, and it should be well thought out. And if they have access to experts in your industry that you don't already have access to, that can be something highly valuable in a co-founder.
On the topic of mentors, I'll start with saying I hate the word mentor. I think it's just kind of a loaded term. I think that there are friendly people out there who are willing to help. And I've been very fortunate really my whole life in having great parents and excellent teachers and good coaches and scout leaders and this whole collection of people really, through. And then being in Colorado, being a CFO and finding a good collection of CFOs who've been willing to help along the way, or VPs of sales, VPs of engineering, and CEOs, has been a very powerful set of relationships. Certainly people I've worked for. Eric Weissman is the founder of Decisioneering, brilliant person. Learned a lot of things from him, but it's an evolving process. I think when we ended up selling Decisioneering to Hyperion, the CEO of Hyperion was Godfrey Sullivan, and Godfrey had more of a role model than a mentor, but he's now CEO of Splunk, and just really is good at scaling companies from 1 billion or 100 million to 1 billion in revenues, and his serenity in how he thinks about things really affected my leadership style. There's people like Rick Patch and Tim Connor from Sequel Ventures, who I raised money from and got to work with. And just you learn their approach that you can be serious about business, but not being great at the same time. You can do it with a smile, you can have fun, you can have a life, or things that you learn from people along the way. David Mall is one of my running friends. We like to run 100-milers, and that's a weird little club of people, but he's also the CEO of WebRoot and now is a VC at Infield Capital. And so he's kind of really been on all sides of the equation. Charles Corfield, another ultra runner, CEO. Again, I don't know if he's a mentor, but sort of a role model, someone you see that can have a balanced life, if you think running 100 miles is balanced. But someone that could have some success and still stay hungry and continue to move forward. So I think rather than having like a formal mentor through some kind of mentoring program, they do that sort of thing with CU or other things. And that's a good start, but I think the more effective approach is having sort of a broad collection of sort of loose relationships that evolves over time.
So back to the original knowledge bomb is don't take it too formal, Shakers. Just keep it informal, let it happen, and success will find you. Cool. So Jim, one more follow-up would be for all the Shakers out there here in Colorado who are trying to launch their first business today. What's one action item they could take right now, immediately after this interview, that could help them handshake their way to entrepreneurial success?
I'll do some self-promotion, right? So, for sure, link into you, link into me.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter, right? So that's where I post all the things that are kind of going on around town, so you can be aware of what's happening at CU or DU or all these various associations and things. And then just getting out there, right? Setting a goal for yourself, say of 20 contacts per week. Right? So like if you're fundraising, I'd have a list of 175 people and knock out 20 per week. If I'm looking for a job, same thing, right? I want to have 175 prospects and knock out 20 per week. And if you set that specific goal of doing 20 meetings per week, again, people will take your meetings, right? It's just, you got to be flexible and maybe willing to buy quite a few coffees, but that is the right kind of cadence. Whether you want to raise money, find a job, or sell a company, basically it's all the same process. You got to have a good long list of process
and break it down
and get out there.
Yeah, great advice. So Jim, if we want to follow you on Twitter, what's your handle?
Just at Jim Franklin.
Perfect. Thank you. And of course, Shakers, go ahead and make a list of either contacts, leads, and break it down and start checking it off. Start making moves today. Cool. I think that concludes our interview. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.